my good buddy from way back in the day at the Worldwide Leader in Sports, who is the host of College Game Day, and I watch him every single Saturday. My 6-year-old Coop is so locked in. He's locked in watching every single minute, and I love the fact that he's getting growing up having Rece Davis be the guy who he watches every single Saturday on ESPN. It kind of gives me the warm and fuzzies. Rece, you're back here on the show. How are you, Rece?
I'm doing great, Rich, and that's very kind.
It's true.
Tell your son, we'll have to have your son out to the show sometime. That'd be great.
Well, here's the neat thing, too, Rece, because, you and I did, I think you and I did a ton of 2 a.m. sports centers when I first got there before I even started doing things regularly with Stuart. And then you were doing your own thing as well. Because you guys have incorporated Chris Felica onto the show, the Bear, okay, who gives he gives you his picks and I just knew him as a researcher when I first started there. So having my son Coop, tell me about Bears Bank and what Chris Felica is coming up with, it's blowing my mind. Susie, too, who knows Feliks from back in the day. It blows my mind, Rece. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. I mean, predating my arrival to the show, they didn't have a guest picker one week, and somebody said, hey, why don't we put Felica on there? And he was so good, and you know all of the information that he can generate. And it's taken on a life of its own. We had a show earlier this year where there was a kid who dressed up like the Bear and brought his own little Bear bank, and we brought him up on the set.
Come on.
He's a phenomenon.
I'd love to see him. Maybe he and Schwab, we can have him. We can get Howie back on there, and different generations of stumping going on. And I know Chris is a big U guy, and so here we are. That's a huge game for this Saturday. I guess let's start there, since Clemson's #1 in the college football playoff ranking. How do you see the ACC Championship working on Saturday?
I think it's the de facto quarterfinal, Rich. I think it's very simple. The winner makes it in. Under the right set of circumstances, should Clemson lose a close game, I could see them still remaining in the 4. It would have to be a particular set of circumstances. But the simplest way is to say winner is going to be in the playoff, and that's as it should be. I think Clemson's the better team. I think their defensive line is the best position group in all of college football, and I use that as a group because Baker Mayfield's obviously, or at least in my judgment, the best player in college football. And I expect Clemson to win, but Miami has been resurgent, and they certainly want to prove something after what happened last week.
Yeah, no, and I saw Michael Irvin last night, obviously part of the Thursday Night Football crew in Dallas, and he's just. He's so fired up because it looks like his son's going to get some playing time based on some of the injuries that have happened to the receiving corps in Miami.
Yeah, they lost 2 of their better targets, Amon Richards, wide receiver, and then Chris Herndon, tight end, and that's where Michael Sutton's going to step into that role, which is a spot that Miami has used, that particular receiver hybrid spot, in a lot of different ways. Lining them up in different places has been an important third down target for them. So Michael Sutton will have a chance to have an impact on the game Saturday night for sure.
And the SEC Championship game that goes on 4 hours before the ACC Championship game, would you say that's a de facto quarterfinal as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, that one for sure. I mean, because Auburn's already #2. If Georgia avenges its only loss by beating Auburn, they'll be in the playoff too. I didn't see anything in that first meeting that would indicate to me that in 3 weeks' time, Georgia could change enough to beat Auburn. They seemed to me to get manhandled on both lines of scrimmage, particularly Georgia's offensive line got handled. They already are reluctant to pass. I wouldn't say they struggle to do it because they've been fairly effective this season throwing the ball. They just don't do it much because of the freshman quarterback. They're going to have to Saturday if they're going to move the ball, and will they be able to protect Jake Fromm long enough? Because Auburn's got a really stout defensive front, good pass rushers. I think that's going to be quite a challenge for Georgia on Saturday.
Rece Davis, College Game Day's host here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, so then give me the scenario that puts Alabama in. What's the most likely scenario that puts the Crimson Tide in, despite not even being part of a conference championship Saturday game?
I would say it's probably Ohio State beating Wisconsin and not doing so 59-0 as they did a few years ago. I think that would be the most likely scenario. The other one that I could see would be TCU knocking off Oklahoma. Now, if both of those things happen, I think it's a there's a really good chance that Alabama would be in the playoff. If one of those happened, that's the best scenario and most likely one that would get them in. But I think there'll be a lot of drama and a lot of angst. Rich, I said this to Kirby Hocutt on our ranking show the other night. Committee can't win with that choice between Ohio State and Alabama if it comes down to that. I mean, and that's not the way the voting goes, but if those are the two most likely candidates, because should, for the third time in 4 years, the three-card Monty, the shell game, however you want to say it, they flip and reveal, and, hey, Ohio State wins again. As the things go around, they're going to be criticized for that. If they choose Alabama, then it's going to be, well, you guys always give Alabama more credit than they've earned. This particular team didn't earn it and all of that kind of thing. So if it comes down to those two teams, I really don't envy the committee, because that answer will not be satisfactory, whichever answer it is, to a majority of non-Ohio State or non-Alabama fans.
But if Ohio State does win that game, how does the selection committee not put the Big Ten champion in the Final Four for the second straight year? How do they do that?
I think if they don't, it will be the albatross of, easily to me, the worst loss in the playoff era by anyone considered a contender, and that's the loss at Iowa. Now, following being the Michigan man that you are, you know how it is in Iowa City.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
But you go up there, and typically how you lose is you lose by some score that nobody's ever seen in a football game. Something like 19-18, 15-12, and somebody makes or misses a field goal at the end of the game, and all the people run out and they're excited, and you say, well, it happened again. This wasn't that. I mean, they gave up 55 points to a team that hadn't even scored 20 in 2 months against any team not named Illinois. 55. They got to be by 31 points. And, I've heard people say, well, it's, this team's trending that way. That game didn't happen in July. That was a November game. And I think if they don't make it, that will be it. That combined with the decisive loss that they had at home to Oklahoma.
Well, and so let's get to what I've been talking about all week, and I'll do it every single year until it happens, an 18 playoff, because we're not even talking about the Pac-12 championship game. That's a moot point. I know that is a moot point. TCU has truly no chance to get in, even if they beat Oklahoma. I understand that there's a Dumb and Dumber chance. I get it. Wouldn't we want to see an undefeated UCF team maybe be some sort of Cinderella in the same way that we see a 12 seed or a 13 seed in March Madness? I mean, aren't we taking all of this potential fun away at the expense of the conversations that we're having right now?
Well, I mean, that's a reasonable point, but I'm not sure that the benefit outweighs the cost to it, because if you did expand it, then last week in Auburn didn't mean a thing.
Hold on. Let me stop you there. How about then if you're in seeded 5 through 8, you have to play a road game at the home of 1 through 4? There's going to come a day, Rich, where I think that's going to happen. I still prefer the exclusivity of making it difficult to get into the playoff I don't want to say protect the regular season, because, this whole every game counts mantra is going to go by the board either way you slice it. Because assuming that somebody, either Oklahoma or Wisconsin, get beat, it's going to go by the board, because if Alabama gets in, you'll say, well, why didn't the Auburn game count? Or if Ohio State gets in, why didn't the Iowa game count? But I still think that the exclusivity serves the sport well right now. Things evolve over time, and there will come a time when we go to 8. And when we do, I hope that they do exactly what you're talking about and play those first-round games on campus, because you're already seeing the difficulty for some fan bases, particularly ones that have been in the playoff multiple years. It's hard to set aside. The finances are certainly difficult. It's hard for most people who even do have the means to set aside the time to be able to go back-to-back and be hanging in limbo as to whether you'll travel to the side of the championship game the second week, or do you skip the semis and wait and go to that one. All of those types of things are important for the atmosphere in the stadium.
So I hope if they ever do expand it, which I'm sure they will at some point, I hope they do exactly what you're saying and play the first rounds on campus.
All right, Rece Davis, crystal ball it for me. Although that's my favorite coaching cliche. I don't have a crystal ball. What do you think? What do you think?
I think it will be. I think Clemson will win. I think Auburn will win. So they'll be the first two in. I think Oklahoma will win to be the third. But I still, even though it's getting awfully trendy and talking too much, I think Wisconsin will lose. And I suspect that ultimately they will choose Alabama to be the fourth team.
Penn State fans would rejoice if that happened. If Ohio State has done to it what happened to Penn State for Ohio State's sake last year, I think Penn State might have a national holiday if something like that happens.
The caveat I'll offer is if Ohio State hammers Wisconsin, then you could ask me that question, and I'll change it to Ohio State.
Do we know?
But if it's 20-17, then then probably not.
Well, do we know? I've been in the Dallas Metroplex area, and then also steroid haze because I have a back issue. What's JT Barrett's status? Do we know?
He's expected to play. He had a little surgical procedure on his knee. They called it minor, but you know what minor surgery is? Something that happens to someone else. So,
that's great.
You know, he's supposed to play. They expect him to be able to go.
Okay. And you're going to Clemson, right? That's where you guys are going?
We are here. We're in Charlotte right now for Clemson, awesome. Miami.
Oh, that's right. You're in Charlotte. Well,
yeah.
Okay. Who's your guest picker? Can you tell me?
Yes, I can. Well, I sure hope I can. I'm going to anyway just because I like you, and then they'll yell at me later. It's going to be Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
All right.
I suggested that every time he makes a pick that Corso likes it, Corso just slaps a hundo on him right there like Uncle Luke used to do the Canes back in the day.
Well, I mean, you should get Irv on, too. Irv's going to be there. He's going to be there. Oh, yeah. He's not missing his son
of course not.
playing for a chance to play for a playoff.
Oh, yeah, of course he will be.
And trust me, all of us at Game Day Morning, we're on pins and needles that he's going to make it for hour one at 6 a.m. Pacific on Sunday, but he's going to be there. He'll be there.
Tell him to get off some of that cash and get on one of those wheels up flights. He'll take him right after the game. It'll be no problem.
You got it, Rece. Thanks for calling in. I'll be tuned in. Coop and I and my other kids will drag him in the room, too. Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
All right, talk to you, Rich.
That's Rece Davis at ESPN_Rece Davis.
For more Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Rich Eisen Show app.